You know, Judge, I have listened carefully to your words, and I understand the perspective you offer. But let me be clear, justice is not the same as authority. You may sit in a courtroom, speak with the power of a gavel, quote laws, and expect respect. But respect alone will never be enough. Respect is earned through action, through courage, through a willingness to stand for what is right. The people own justice, not the titles, not the robes, not those who believe power makes them untouchable. Without morality, laws are just chains. They bind the innocent while the guilty walk free. I will never allow that to happen so long as I can speak. I will never be silent when the weak are crushed beneath the weight of indifference. Confrontation's fear does not protect anyone. To be silent in the face of injustice is betrayal. I will not betray those who have entrusted me with their hope, their trust, their future. You speak of rules, of procedures, of technicalities, and yet you forget the most fundamental truth there is. A leader's duty is to serve, not to dominate, to protect, not to oppress, to honor the trust placed in them, not to trample it for convenience. Power can command attention, yes, but it cannot command truth. It can demand respect. It can demand obedience. It can demand fear. And many will comply simply because they are afraid, simply because they see no other choice. But truth is no servant to power. Truth does not bend to the whims of those who hold titles, who sit in high offices, who wear robes of authority. Truth does not bow. It does not cower. It does not hide in the shadows when the powerful speak their half-lies and their convenient excuses. Truth has a voice, a strength, a presence that fear cannot silence, that intimidation cannot quiet. It exists regardless of circumstance, and it will always rise above the noise of power, above the spectacle of authority, above the manufactured compliance of those too afraid to speak. Truth will always be louder than any gavel, louder than any courtroom, louder than any title. You can sit behind your desk. You can wave your pen. You can recite laws until your voice is gone. But the voice of truth will cut through all of it. It does not ask permission to be heard. It does not seek validation from those who believe that power defines reality. It pierces through lies. It exposes hypocrisy. It shines a light on injustice, no matter how deeply it is buried. And when the people hear truth, when they see it spoken without fear, without hesitation, without compromise, it awakens something within them. It reminds them that another path exists, another standard, another force in the world that cannot be bought, that cannot be negotiated, that cannot be silenced. And no law, no judge, no authority, no crown, no position of influence can erase it. No matter how many rules are written, no matter how many procedures are enforced, the truth remains unwavering, unshakable, undeniable. I stand here not to oppose you personally, Judge, but to oppose injustice wherever it may hide. I do not seek to destroy you. I do not seek to shame you. I do not seek to humiliate or belittle anyone. What I seek is far greater, far more important, far more necessary. I seek to remind the world and everyone watching that injustice cannot go unchallenged, that wrongdoing cannot be tolerated, that those who hold power are not above accountability. I am not here for vengeance. I am here for principle. I am not here to win arguments. I am here to stand for what is right. And right is not determined by titles, by robes, by courtrooms, or by the illusion of authority. Right is determined by conscience, by fairness, by moral courage, by the unyielding standard that humanity sets for itself when it refuses to accept oppression and exploitation as normal. Accountability is not the privilege of the powerful. It is the duty of everyone. Every person, every leader, every citizen has a responsibility to recognize injustice, to challenge it, to speak against it. To enforce accountability is not a favor to society. It is a requirement, a moral obligation. The powerful often act as though responsibility is optional, as though rules apply only to those below them, as though they can live in a separate universe where the consequences of their actions do not touch the lives of others. But that is not how the world works. That is not how history works. That is not how truth works. We are all bound together by our actions, by our choices, by the consequences we create. And to turn away from that, to ignore it, to claim exemption because of power is nothing less than a betrayal of humanity itself. Titles and robes do not absolve anyone from responsibility. You wear the robe, judge, and you carry the title, and you sit in a place that commands respect, but that robe does not protect you from conscience. That title does not protect you from judgment. That office does not shield you from history. Every action you take, every word you speak, every decision you make will be remembered, and it will be weighed not just by the law, but by the eyes of the people, by the measure of fairness, by the standards that morality demands. Authority does not give immunity. It does not give license. It does not erase the consequences of negligence, of corruption, of indifference. The robe you wear may give the illusion of invincibility, but it does not make you untouchable. The title you hold may demand outward respect, but it cannot erase the truth of your actions, the consequences of your choices, the judgment of history. You wear the robe, but it does not shield you from history, from conscience, from the eyes of the people. History watches all of us. It waits patiently, silently, observing the moments when people make choices, when leaders act, when courage is shown, when cowardice is hidden behind procedure. History remembers. It does not forget. It does not forgive lightly. And conscience is relentless. It will not allow one to ignore the suffering caused, the wrongs committed, the injustices left unchallenged. And the people judge. They are not blind. They see, they feel, they remember. They do not measure respect by a title or a gavel or a robe. They measure it by action, by integrity, by courage, by the willingness to stand when standing is difficult, when standing is dangerous, when standing might threaten comfort, security, or convenience. No matter how much power you wield, no matter how many laws you enforce, no matter how many people bow in deference to authority, the truth will always find a way to speak. It will rise. It will resonate. It will echo across time, across generations, across borders, across the hearts and minds of those who seek justice. And I will stand as a witness to that truth. I will speak it. I will defend it. I will fight for it. Because to do otherwise is to betray everything I believe in, everything I stand for, everything that binds me to my people, to my nation, to history itself. The robe may cover you. The title may protect you. The courtroom may shelter you. But they cannot hide you from justice, from morality, from the voices of those who demand fairness, from the scrutiny of those who see clearly and refuse to be deceived. Accountability is not optional. Responsibility is not negotiable. And no matter how much power is amassed, no matter how much authority is displayed, no one can escape the weight of truth when it arrives. It is inevitable. It is unyielding. It is absolute. And I will not bend. I will not falter. I will not be silenced. Because the people deserve more than fear. Because the world deserves more than complicity. Because truth deserves to be heard. No matter who sits in judgment. No matter who claims power. No matter who hopes to remain untouchable. I speak today not to humiliate, not to provoke, not to create spectacle, but because I must. Because conscience demands it. Because justice demands it. And because those who have no voice, those who have been silenced, those who have been ignored, deserve someone to stand in their place, to speak their truth, to demand that authority be accountable, that power be constrained, that justice be recognized. And so I say, Judge, your gavel cannot silence me. Your robe cannot protect you from the truth. Your authority cannot erase the consequences of your choices. The people are watching. History is watching. Conscience is watching. And in the end, it is not the titles, not the robes, not the courtroom that matters. It is the courage to stand, the willingness to speak, the commitment to act, the refusal to bow to fear or convenience, the insistence that justice be done, even when it is hard, even when it is lonely, even when it is dangerous. Power can command attention, that is true, but it cannot command truth. And I will speak the truth for as long as I live, for as long as I stand, for as long as I draw breath, because truth will always rise. Truth will always endure. Truth will always prevail. A single sentence from a judge cannot silence the voice of an entire nation crying out for justice. You interpret the law, judge, but I interpret justice. And let me be clear, the two are not always the same. You may win your debates, quote your statutes, maneuver through procedure, but history does not remember those who simply win arguments. History remembers those who stand for what is right, who speak when silence is the easier path, who risk everything for principles that cannot be bought or bargained. We often hear, don't we, that the law is perfect, that it is impartial, that it is above reproach. People say these things as if repeating them enough will make them true. They say them as if a robe, a gavel, or a quoted statute is all that is required to guarantee fairness. And yet, when we look around us, we see something very different. We see that laws alone cannot heal our wounds. They cannot mend what has been broken. They cannot restore what has been stolen. They cannot protect the innocent from harm when those entrusted with power choose convenience over courage, indifference over integrity, silence over action. We see that laws are written, yes, but they are interpreted by humans, and humans are flawed. We are capable of error, of corruption, of compromise. And when morality is absent, when conscience is ignored, even the most perfect law becomes hollow. It becomes an empty shell. It becomes a tool for oppression rather than protection. We see that laws alone cannot protect the innocent. They cannot shield a child from abuse, a family from injustice, a community from exploitation when those who enforce the law are blind to wrongdoing or indifferent to suffering. The law can be invoked. The law can be applied. The law can be quoted. But if those who apply it do not carry justice in their hearts, if they do not act with courage, if they do not care about right and wrong beyond the letter of the text, then the law itself becomes meaningless. It is no longer a safeguard. It becomes a weapon that can crush the powerless, reward the corrupt, and leave the truth buried beneath the weight of formalities. We see that laws alone cannot bring honor where betrayal has been sown, where trust has been broken, where leaders have failed, where promises have been abandoned, where those in power have chosen self-interest over responsibility. Laws are powerless. They cannot restore the dignity that has been stolen. They cannot undo the damage caused by arrogance, greed, or neglect. They cannot correct the moral imbalance created by those who would abuse their position. Laws are silent in the face of betrayal. They are impotent against hypocrisy. They are ineffective when the structures of power themselves are corrupted. It is morality that restores honor. It is conscience that demands repair. It is courage that stands and says, no more. Without these, laws are mere words, and words without action are meaningless. Laws without morality are hollow. Procedures without conscience are chains. Chains that bind the innocent. Chains that restrict freedom. Chains that enforce obedience to the powerful while leaving the weak unprotected. When we allow laws to be applied mechanically without regard for fairness, without regard for compassion, without regard for principle, we create a society where injustice is not only possible, it becomes inevitable. We create a world where the powerful are emboldened to exploit, where the vulnerable are silenced, where truth is optional and lies are tolerated. We create a world where responsibility is negotiable and conscience is treated as a suggestion rather than a requirement. I refuse to live in such a world. I refuse to accept that morality is optional, that conscience is negotiable, that justice is defined not by what is right, but by what is convenient. I refuse to accept a society in which decisions are made based on expedience, on personal gain, on fear rather than on principle. Convenience should never dictate what is just. Comfort should never override what is right. The easy path is not the honorable path. The path of compromise is not the path of integrity. To live by convenience is to betray the very essence of justice. I refuse to stand silently while laws are applied selectively, while procedures are enforced unevenly, while those in positions of authority decide who deserves protection and who does not. I refuse to witness the suffering of the innocent being justified by technicalities, by loopholes, by interpretations that serve the powerful. I refuse to allow history to remember a generation that tolerated injustice simply because it was inconvenient to challenge. I refuse to participate in a system that measures success not by fairness, but by control, not by righteousness, but by compliance. Justice is not measured by the letter of the law alone. Justice is measured by the way people are treated, by the way the weak are protected, by the way truth is defended, by the courage to confront wrongdoing, even when it threatens comfort, even when it challenges authority, even when it puts those who speak at risk.